Tonight, we look back with Sal Pao, Sean Green, and Gary Myers on a resounding Eagles win in Super Bowl 59, what the offseason holds in Philly and the NFC East, and why Eli Manning didn't get that yellow jacket. That is all next on a finale edition of This Week in Pro Football.
It's time for This Week in Pro Football, a deep dive into the key issues and marquee matchups in the National Football League. For the next 60 minutes, we invite you to sit back or lean in with host Pat Callahan as we preview the week's Eagles matchup, big games, breaking stories, and all news NFL. It's This Week in Pro Football, right now on JAKIB Media Sports.
Hi, welcome everybody. Pat Callahan joining you for, unfortunately, what is the finale of This Week in Pro Football for the 2024-25 NFL season. But boy, did it end well for the Philadelphia region, as the Eagles just demolished the Kansas City Chiefs 40-22 in Super Bowl 59. Welcome to everybody in the chat. Thank you all for joining me. And Sal Pao's going to join me in just a couple minutes. Sean Green at the bottom of the hour. Gary Myers will join me to talk about the Hall of Fame and the NFC East. And then we'll wrap it up with you in the chat room and a very special guest to finish the season. So we'll do all that. But for now, I just want to tell you, the Eagles ran the ball 45 times for 135 yards. That's only 3 yards a carry. Only totaled up 345 total yards and just crushed Kansas City. Just crushed them. They had 36 minutes of time of possession. The Eagles defense, 6 sacks, 11 quarterback hits, 3 turnovers, and a pick 6. And didn't it seem like they could have had more? Really just an amazing display. The Chiefs had 23 yards at the end of the first half. 7 rush attempts by running backs the entire game for Kansas City. It's almost like the Chiefs stumbled in to the Super Bowl. Here's a theory of mine before we get to Sal, and I want Sal to actually offer an opinion on it, is that hindsight's always 20/20. And did we miss this? That Kansas City basically just won by spent most of the regular season and the playoffs winning by field goals being blocked, other field goals going in off the goalpost, some favorable calls for Patty Mahomes, and really just close wins. Never really blowing anybody out, never demonstrating the type of ferocity that they saw on Sunday. Meanwhile, Philadelphia, a terrific finish to the regular season, a blasé win over Green Bay. They didn't need to do much, and a wake-up call against the Rams where they came within 20 yards of losing, but they learned from it. They demolished Washington a week later, and they came into New Orleans with one thing on their mind, and that was complete annihilation, and they did it. So really, you look back on it, you could just see, now you can say with some clarity, the Chiefs were not the equal of the Eagles. I'm annoyed at myself because I did say that there were 3 possible outcomes in this game. A close win for the Chiefs, close win for the Eagles, or the Eagles would blow them out. I should have trusted my instincts and just went with the last. But hindsight, of course, being what it is. But a resounding win for Philadelphia all the way. And just what a finish to the season for the Eagles, who just really put a major green and silver stamp on the 2024 NFL season. Give me a follow, will you, at TWIPF Pat? You can follow the station at JAKIB Sports, and please hit that like button about 10,000 times. Speaking of liking somebody, let's get this guy here, Zander, and that would be the host of the NFL Matchup Show and the author of How Football Explains America and Philly Special. That would be Sal Paolantonio. Sal, how you doing?
Pat, I'm doing great. And, Pat, you pay me the big bucks to get it right on This Week in Pro Football.
Right.
So on the matchup show, I picked the Eagles to win. On this show, I picked the Eagles to win. 2 weeks before I left, a week before I left, I visited my granddaughter here at her house. You just met her backstage on the show. Right. Audrey, she's 6 3/4, as she told you. We picked. It is.
There it is, man.
37-23.
There you go, Sal. You think of the billions of dollars spent by guys in talking heads in suits trying to make predictions on the game, and there you go, 6 3/4, 37-23.
She and I got together, and I said, Audrey, it's going to be a blowout. The Eagles are going to win big. The Eagles are going to score at least 5 touchdowns, 35 points. I'm going to go 37. give me a score. And she said, Papa, 23. And we came the closest of anybody on ESPN.com.
Yeah.
But, Pat, I knew it was going to be – I knew the Eagles would be in control.
Right.
I knew they would be in control of the game because they had – what did detectives say? Motive and opportunity.
Yeah.
Motive and opportunity, Pat.
Yep.
They had motive and opportunity. The motive was they felt like 2 years ago they got robbed.
Right.
That was number one. Two, they just thought all of this talk of three-peat, what are we doing?
Right.
You know, you're trying to trademark three-peat with Pat Riley and you haven't played the game. It's sort of like Bill Belichick getting up there and showing the Patriots that the Eagles had the parade route once upon a time.
Right. Yeah. Yep. Sal Paolantonio, the theory I expounded before you came on, what was that in plain sight in front of us the whole time? The way the two teams showed up in New Orleans, the Eagles on a kind of on a downhill track, just playing downhill football, and the Chiefs kind of edged their way to New Orleans.
Yeah, I didn't miss it. A lot of people who are quote unquote professional prognosticators or film watchers did.
Yeah.
I didn't miss it. There's certain people like Stephen A. Smith. He didn't miss it. There are some people who didn't miss it. I came on your show a week ago on this show, and I said, this team, and I've been around a lot of Eagles teams for 30 plus years.
Right.
This was the best team, and they were in the most confident mindset I've ever seen. I said it on this show.
Right. All right, Sal, in terms of franchise milestones, where does this win? Where does the win rank, and where does this team rank?
This is the greatest Eagles team of all time. This is the greatest franchise victory of all time. This is the greatest postseason win in the history of Philadelphia sports.
There you go. There you go. What else would you really put up there in terms of a single game? I would say you're absolutely right. Some might say they're 4-game series wins by other sports, the Sixers or the Flyers or whatever. But in terms of just a single performance, this one is I think the most memorable by a Philadelphia team for sure.
Well, you could say 83 Sixers and the Flyers of the 70s are right there. Right. But Phillies, no, they played the Royals. And then they beat the Tampa Bay Devil Rays. Right. The Eagles beat 4 guys going to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Mahomes, Reed, Spagnuolo, and probably Chris Jones.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Who had won 2 Super Bowls in a row, by the way.
Yeah. Let's talk about then this Philadelphia Eagle team, Sal, and whether, it's so hard. Like you just mentioned, all this talk, three-peat, the Chiefs a dynasty. Now you look at the way the Eagles are built and the number of guys they have, especially skill position guys, under contract. How long do you think this stone can roll downhill here, Sal?
Well, you start with Saquon, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, the 5 offensive linemen, and Jalen Hurts. Right. That's enough, I think, to make them the odds-on Super Bowl favorite from the NFC right there. Then you add Jalen Carter, Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell.
Yeah.
And you got the nucleus of a very good defense, if not great. So what are you going to do in free agency? Pass rushers are hard to find. For me, I go after Josh Sweat, and I try to get him under contract. Milton Williams, okay, he was made better by Jalen Carter. I get it. And you still have Jordan Davis. I get it. But I still try to sign Milton Williams. And then in my view, you have to Zach Bond has to come back.
Zander, can you bring that list up, Zander, just for a minute? We could show that to Sal, and he can opine on just the top ones. But, Sal, I just wanted to do this with you, just to review the Eagles' free agents. And let's see. You mentioned a number of them already, but give me the order in which you would, if you're Howie Roseman, I want you to be constant. Yeah, where is your immediate concentration on this list of free agents here? But let's start with that. Here we go. Is Zach Bond? Tell me where you're thinking here. Is Bond your first guy you're going to pick up the phone and call?
It would be Josh Sweat because pass rushers are so hard to find, good ones.
Right.
If you're drafting a pass rusher of Sweat's value, you're doing it in the top half of the first round, and the Eagles don't have that pick.
Right.
So to me, it's got to be Josh Sweat, and then Zach Bond. and
Right.
Milton Williams. I think those are the three top ones that somehow Magic Howie, Trader Howie's got to figure out salary cap, whatever, figure out how you get those three back. And if you got to pick 2 out of 3, I think it's got to be Sweat and Bond, and then
All right.
Milton Williams after that, because you
All right.
already have Carter and Davis, and you have Moro Ajomo. I mean, you have some defensive tackles.
All right. Sal, you talked up Mekhi Becton all year long, and you you talked him up as a guy who was actually, as you mentioned it, unheralded on this offensive line. But now there he is. How important is it that Howie somehow sneaked a guy that big under the cap?
Well, here's the thing about Mekhi Becton. The Eagles picked him up, made him a guard, and if you saw his emotional response after winning the Super Bowl, how he hugged Howie Roseman, how he hugged Jeffrey Lurie, how he just felt like finally in his life, professionally and personally, he belonged to something big and important. I think that's a huge selling point for him to come back. The Eagles believed in him when other teams did not. And he was a wayfarer. So they brought him in. He gets coached up by Jeff Stoutland, the best offensive line coach in the National Football League. He's made into a right guard. He had never played right guard in his life until he got to Philly. Yeah. And in my view, he played at a Pro Bowl level.
Yeah, he did. He certainly did.
So you could sell him on, listen, this is our family. We want you here.
Yeah.
But, there's the other thing, money.
Yes. Yeah, money does tend to get in the way. Sal, you also.
But, you could, Pat, go back to the Tyreek Hill situation. This is something that a lot of people miss. Tyreek Hill missed 3 Super Bowl rings by leaving Kansas City.
Yeah.
So true. You got to go. If I'm Howie, I go to these guys and I say, listen, we got Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. We got A.J. Brown. We got Devontae Smith. We got this Philly fan base. Yeah. You stay here with us. Yeah. We can build something great, or you can chase the money. As my old man used to say, you can chase money or chase history, but if you chase history, you might get both.
Yeah. Yep. Fair enough. That's fair enough and pretty profound and true. All right. The name you're hearing bandied about Sal Pao a lot now, Myles Garrett. He's requested a trade from the Browns. Do you think the Eagles get into that sweepstakes, and should they?
No, I think they won't. I think because of Josh Sweat's availability. So, you're going to have to pay Myles Garrett a lot of money, and you're going to have to give up a lot for him. So why not just pay Josh Sweat? Josh Sweat just terrorized the Super Bowl, took it over. He could have easily been the MVP. Yeah. He was Michael Strahan, for crying out loud.
Yep. I'd always be leery of trading for a guy like Myles Garrett. You're going to give up a lot, and why not? Why not take care of the homegrown guys who just got you there? I agree with you wholeheartedly on that. And where do you see now? The Eagles are picking dead last, 32. Now, this guy, Howie, has done one hell of a job. He's been picking in the mid to high 20s for the last 4 years, and he's mined 8 guys who started last week. What position do you think he'll be looking at 32?
Well, first of all, he will not pick at 32. I can guarantee you that. He will either move down and pick twice in the second round, where he did great last year. Great.
Yep.
Or he will try to move up. He will target somebody at a position and say, I want that guy. So this guy gets Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo. And if you remember, I came on your show and I'm like, Pat, I mean, not for nothing. Listen, I believe in Howie Roseman, but for Christ's sake, you're going from Toledo to the NFL. That's not easy to do. They saw something in him, A. B, they have a great coaching staff. He's got Darius Slay, Big Play Slay, coaching him up. And it turned into absolute gold.
It sure did. Well, it sure did.
They won't pick at 32. They'll either take a pick and move up, or move down and get 2 and try to get a couple of players. They need a tackle. They need an offensive tackle bad. They definitely need an offensive tackle bad. And they need another corner.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk just a couple nuggets about the game. You were your usual cogent self-texting during the game. You did Vic Fangio actually borrow from Todd Bowles going into that. Did he see something, you think, from that game and build whatever the Eagles were doing around it and defensively?
So I think I texted you that fact during the game. I said, this is Todd Bowles' defense.
Right.
So
Right. You actually texted Todd Bowles. And right?
I texted Todd Bowles and I said, Vic Fangio copied your defense. And within 20 seconds, less than half a minute, I got a reply from him. Yeah. And it was one word. Yeah. Yup.
Yeah. That's funny. You even thought of that, but it sure looked like it. It just wasn't it reminiscent of how the Buccaneers terrorized Mahomes that day, and the Eagles, they doubled down on it.
Drop 7, rush 4. Yeah. That's what they did to Mahomes, and Mahomes was running laterally against the Bucs defense, just like he was against Philadelphia. Yeah. It was a carbon copy except for two things. The Eagles had better players, without a doubt.
Yep.
And the Chiefs' offensive line was worse than it was in that game.
Yeah, that's certainly right. It was such a perfect day for the Eagles, Sal. Jake Elliott actually made 10 kicks. He was 10 for 10, 4 field goals, 2 of which he had to kick twice, and 4 extra points. It's just amazing how the entire day came together for Philadelphia, including their quarterback. Just talk to me now for a minute about Jalen Hurts answered the bell, because that was the only position where the Chiefs probably outranked Philadelphia going into the game. Has Hurts now reinserted himself in that conversation, say that top echelon conversation in the NFL at quarterback?
Oh, absolutely. What are we talking about here? We're talking about a guy who won a Super Bowl, and he was the MVP of the NFC Championship game, and he was the MVP of the Super Bowl. You know, people want to give it to Josh Sweat. I understand that. I would not have a problem. Right. Zach Bond had an interception. He led the team in tackles in the Super Bowl. He had a pass defense. He had a tackle for a loss. Zach Bond, you can make a case that he should be MVP. But Jalen Hurts accounted for 3 touchdowns. He was the leading passer and the leading rusher in Super Bowl 57 and Super Bowl 59. He is the first quarterback to be the leading passer and leading rusher in 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah, it was very impressive job by him. Sal, just a word, Kellen Moore. I just wanted to get your opinion on this. Do you think he made a mistake? Now, I know I know it's not a fair question, but what I'm saying is the Saints $100 million over the cap. I think they could be the worst team in the NFL next year, or they could be at least in the conversation. This guy, I'm not saying he can mail it in being the Eagles offensive coordinator, but all that talent, as you mentioned, is going to stay in Philadelphia. Do you think Moore maybe should have thought long and hard about it?
Pat, I don't. I think timing is everything in life. You know, there's an old saying, and it's still true. It's a cliche. It's a cliche because it's true. Strike while the iron is hot.
Okay. All right.
You know, it's not like there's 3,200 of these jobs.
No, you're right about. I understand
there's
that.
32 of these jobs.
Right.
You know, no one. If the Saints fail, no one is going to blame Kellen Moore.
Right.
If the Saints succeed, everyone is going to give Kellen Moore credit.
It's fair. It's a fair statement. Fair. But I think back to Steve Spagnuolo. You were talking about that a couple of weeks ago. Sometimes life is very unfair. But hey, look, we'll see how this guy does. Do you think the impact? I only have you for another minute or so. The impact on Hurts of Moore leaving. Do you see anything discernible there?
I do. I think he really found a comfort zone with Kellen Moore. Here's what I love about Kellen Moore, and I do say love. I think he's distinct in this area. He's willing to adapt. He is a very good listener.
Okay.
And I think in this day and age, where collaboration is so important in communicating with people you work with or people who work for you, you know, it's dictatorial style does not work anymore.
Yeah.
You got to collaborate, right?
All right. Yeah.
So when you're coordinating, you must collaborate. And I think he's a very good collaborator and a very good listener. He was put in an impossible situation, right?
Yeah.
So people don't know how much Nick Sirianni was walking the plank after 2023.
Yeah.
To what extent he was.
Yeah.
So they strip him of all offensive play calling duties,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they give it to Kellen Moore. And Kellen Moore is out on an island with a quarterback who oversaw a collapse. And he's got to bring him back.
Yeah.
And he's got a new toy that's unprecedented
That's
in
right.
Saquon Barkley.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
you know, the offensive line after week
No
4
doubt,
goes
you're
into Sirianni's office and says, we got to run the ball.
Right.
Maybe, I don't know this. I'm speculating, informed speculation, Pat. Maybe it was Kellen Moore who said to Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata, hey, go into the coach and tell him we need to run the ball.
All right.
Maybe.
Could very well
Might
have
have
been.
been.
Could very well. Sure.
And if it wasn't that situation, that he was willing to listen to the O-line and the coach
Fair
and
enough.
change midstream and
All right.
give the ball to Saquon Barkley, turn it over the offense to the running game, and then it was literally off to the
It
races.
sure was.
So Pat,
It
I think his ability to listen and adapt in this day and age is very, very important. And he's a smart guy, and he turned out to be a great play caller.
Yeah. All right, but listen, Sal Pal, we on this show are great listeners too. We've listened to you all season. I appreciated every minute of it. You did a hell of a job this year, from Sao Paulo to all the way to the Super Bowl. So I can't thank you enough for joining me, and we'll sign you up. Hopefully you and I will have a quick negotiation for next year, because you're always a UFA. I hope that we can close that up, and appreciate it, and look forward to talking to you. Look forward to maybe
look at that score, Pat.
Yeah, maybe if not,
score.
yeah. If I can't sign you, Sal, maybe I could talk to Audrey, and we can
Audrey, yes. By that time she'll be 7 and not 6 3/4.
That's right.
So
maybe there's a child labor law thing.
So her pay is going to go way up at age 7, Pat. Listen, right. Pat, I would like to say, first of all, thank you to you. This show is great. I love being on it. I hear great things about it from everyone. The show is fantastic. Thank you to JAKIB Media. Thank you to Zander. Does a great job producing the show. It is my honor and pleasure to be on this show. Thank you for having me, Pat.
All right, Sal. I appreciate those words very much, pal. Stay well, and I'll see you on the golf course, I hope, somewhere, and take it easy, all right? All right, Sal Paolantonio joining me there for, unfortunately, the last time, but he did a great job all season long. Sal, just the most informed and eloquent, I think, of all the NFL correspondents. I hope you enjoyed that. When we get back, a quick break and then just a quick segment here. We'll take a look at the Eagles' 2025 opponents. It's dawning. We'll do that, and Sean Green coming up at the bottom of the hour as we roll along here on the finale of This Week in Pro Football.
Welcome back. We've got another exciting play underway at KennedyAuto.com.
That's right. At KennedyAuto.com, you can browse their entire inventory from home.
The customer is scrolling hundreds of Ford, Mazda, and Subaru vehicles right at his fingertips.
He made his selection and got a bottom line price set directly to his email. He could go all the way.
And the deal is good, all without leaving his couch. Incredible. KennedyAuto.com. Enjoy your ride.
Discover the essence of true community banking with First Bank, your trusted partner across Eastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Their network of branches brings you convenient access to dedicated personal bankers who understand your unique needs. At First Bank, you're not just a customer, you're a valued member of the community. Additionally, they are excited to announce the opening of 2 new branches in Media, Pennsylvania and Trenton, New Jersey, bringing their personalized banking services even closer to you. Connect with any member of the team today at their Westchester office, conveniently located at 849 Paoli Pike, or call them at 484-881-3800. First Bank is an equal opportunity lender and member FDIC.
Johnny Apple's Restaurant and Bar opened in 2001 and for over 20 years has been serving great food and good times to Bucks County residents, friends, and family. Ideally located at 184 Buck Road in Holland, Johnny Apple's offers a terrific array of steaks, seafood, and daily specials. They also host private parties and affairs of any size. For excellent food, great company, and a relaxed lunch or dinner, check out Johnny Apple's Restaurant at 215-953-9900 or at johnnyapplesrestaurant.com.
right, welcome back here this week in pro football. Just looking at some of the comments here, boy, a lot of people. I'm glad to see they appreciate Sal and the the heavyweight nature he brought to the show, and he brings every single week. It's really terrific. And boy, I tell you, he was, he did say it about the Eagles. He did think the Eagles would win, but I was the one who said that they had a chance to rout them. But easy enough. We can all look back and pat ourselves on the back. All right, Zander, if you could bring up that 2025 look. This is the Eagles. These are the Eagles' opponents. It's not the schedule. It's not finalized. They got to layer all that stuff in. But here's who the Eagles are going to play in 2025. The usual suspects from the NFC East. But the Eagles play the NFC North and the AFC West. That is not a good draw right now. If you think about it, the NFC North with Green Bay, Detroit, and Minnesota, it might be the toughest division in the NFC. And the AFC West, Kansas City, the LA Chargers, the Denver Broncos, who are an up-and-coming team, and now, of course, you got the Vegas Raiders. But now Tom Brady's the owner. Maybe they get, Pete Carroll named as the coach. You might see an uptick there in the Raiders. So the Eagles, that's a tough draw. That is a tough draw for Philadelphia right there. And you notice also, the Eagles finish first. They also have to play the teams in the Eagles play the NFC North. They play the teams in the NFC West and the NFC South that were the same position as they finished. So it's first place team. So the Eagles also get the Rams at home, and they saw how tough that could be. And they get Tampa Bay on the road. So I would suspect, ladies and gentlemen, look, and there you go, too, just to throw in, just to make it even worse, the 17th game, which is the 5th AFC team. Look who it is, Buffalo Bills. I think this will end up being, if not the toughest, one of the 3 toughest schedules in the NFL when they finally rank them next year. So, man, you throw in all the teams I just told you, and you also have the Washington Commanders twice. So that's not an easy one. That is not an easy one for your Philadelphia Eagles right there. So I don't know. I don't know what the Eagles are going to do. They're going to have to be serious. That's for sure. There's no AFC South there with Jacksonville and Indianapolis, and there's no NFC South there with Atlanta or New Orleans like the Eagles had this year. So that's not going to be easy for Philadelphia. Obviously wins against the Giants, fine. The Cowboys, despite what Dak Prescott says, I'm going to talk to Gary Myers about that. Despite what Dak's talking about, he's delusional that the Cowboys are going to be back with any degree of ferocity next year. But that's a tough schedule for Philadelphia. Tough schedule. Good they get Denver at home. The Raiders, I'd rather play them on the road because they don't have a home field advantage at all. And the Eagles have to go to Kansas City. That won't be easy. The Chargers, that's a home game for Philadelphia. So maybe that'll balance out. Okay, Zander, thanks very much. All right, that was quick. I know more bills to pay. We'll do that when we come back. Sean Green is going to join me from the Sports Gambling Podcast, and we'll talk about I saw him climbing up some light poles in Los Angeles. He was the only guy doing it. Everybody must have been looking at him like he was nuts. But we'll talk to Sean about his thoughts about Super Bowl 59 and what betting trends he sees for the going into next season. That's all next on This Week in Pro Football.
What on earth are you doing? We have dinner reservations in 15 minutes.
I'm trying to figure out who to start in my fantasy football lineup. Every website I check has a different opinion. It's driving me crazy. How do you set your lineup so fast?
I have a secret weapon that will blow your mind.
Wow. What's the secret?
I've been using FantasyGuru.com for all of my fantasy football decisions.
FantasyGuru.com? Isn't that with that crazy guy, Jeff Mans?
You mean the legendary fantasy guru, Jeff Mans? He's a genius. FantasyGuru.com has everything you need to dominate your league. Starts, sits, busts. It's like having a fantasy football expert panel in your corner.
Wow, FantasyGuru.com. But I feel like you're cheating on me.
How do you think I won our league last year? FantasyGuru.com. It'll feel like you're cheating, but you're not. Join FantasyGuru.com today. Use the code NEW30 for 30% off instant savings.
Evolution Energy Partners has helped hundreds of businesses save millions of dollars on their energy spend. They offer electricity and gas procurement strategies, efficiency audits and engineering and financing solutions, as well as online utility bill management. To learn how your business can save, visit www.evolutionep.com or contact Chuck Herschella at 610-329-8288. Evolution Energy Partners, energy solutions to improve your bottom line.
At Whistler Pearlstein LLP, we assemble the most effective team to handle all of your legal needs. There are players and pretenders, but our hustle and heart set us apart. In practice now for over 75 years, we're proud to be one of the most prominent full-service law firms in the Philadelphia region. We offer 17 different areas of practice, including business, corporate, and tax education law, real estate, zoning, and land development, municipal law, and litigation. Our top-rated attorneys and staff are laser-focused on client success. We strive to provide outstanding legal counsel with the highest level of care and consideration. Let us show you the Whistler way. Learn more at WhistlerPearlstein.com or email Michael J. O'Donohue at mod@whistpearl.com. WhistlerPearlstein.com or mod@whistpearl.com.
All right, welcome back here this week in Pro Football. Pat Callahan here with you on our finale after 20-some weeks. Been a hell of a run in the National Football League and for the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm sure it's been a hell of a run for this gentleman, the host of the Sports Gambling Podcast. Of course, that would be the excellent Sean Green. Sean, how you doing?
Doing great. Yeah, Eagles Super Bowl champs, made a ton of money. It was it was a great day.
Not in that order. No, it was great, not in that order. I bet that. But I saw you climbing up a light pole. Everybody, yeah. I'm surprised they didn't shoot you down because no one else was paying the slightest attention to do with that.
No. Well, we got a light pole right next to our studio office, and technically I'm in LA. It is Eagle Rock, California, so had to represent the Eagles on Eagle Rock Boulevard.
Very good, pal. Very good. Very good. I got my phone off.
But yeah, it was just going nuts, celebrating. It was an awesome win. There was never any sort of doubt. They just completely destroyed them top to bottom. I felt confident coming into the game. I highlighted the matchups, the D-line, our ability to move the ball on them. And I thought they would win by margin, but not that big of a margin. I mean, the Chiefs didn't score until it was 34-0. So that was a little surprising.
That was a 40-6 game, and it wasn't never mind the 22. I espoused the theory it's not a theory. It was really some excellent Monday morning hindsight, if you will, that we all kind of missed the major cue there, which was that the Chiefs, they were winning games by blocked field goals and field goals going in off goalposts most of the season and in the playoffs. Meanwhile, the Eagles, they were playing some downhill football. They demolished Washington. They got scared by the Rams. They demolished Washington. They came to New Orleans. Was it more apparent than we realized that the Eagles could really blow them out?
Yeah, I mean, I love the D-line matchup. And again, everyone talked about rewatching Super Bowl 57 and how that would compare. I went and rewatched the Super Bowl loss that the Bucs had against the Chiefs, and it was like, man, I feel like the Eagles defense can do a lot of this stuff. Right. They didn't have a lot of matchups in their favor, but yeah, I think people saw the negative yards per play, all these the stuff that the Chiefs weren't good statistically, but they go, well, who am I to doubt Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid? And it did work. It did work in the playoffs. The Bills defensive line couldn't bring that against the Chiefs offensive line. So the truth's probably somewhere in between because, they still got it done in the playoffs. I think they were still a pretty good team. But just this Eagles team was elite at all.
But really, too, I mentioned with Sal Paolantonio just a few minutes ago how I never saw the Eagles' defensive line that ferocious all season long. It's just like somebody hit them with an electric prod. Jake Elliott, 10 for 10 on kicks because he had to kick two of them twice and they all were drilled right down the middle. It's almost some sort of kismet thing where it all came together for 3.5 hours on a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, no, I mean, they were laser focused, and I know Nick Sirianni's taken a ton of grief in his 4 years here in Philadelphia, which is kind of crazy considering the amount of games he's won and the success he's had. You know, people wanted to fire him after week 4. I was not in that camp.
Yeah.
I was never in the camp of getting rid of Jalen Hurts or Nick Sirianni. I stood by them. I'm glad I did, but yeah, and I think you have to go back to the quarterback, Jalen Hurts, who by all accounts had like a really awesome speech that helped everyone lock in. And this team took it personal that the Chiefs were already like possibly looking to trademark or use the three-peat trademark, whatever it was. They clearly were very confident. I think Sal had reporting on that going into the game, and other Philly beat reporters were like, this is a confident locker room. And it clearly translated there on Sunday.
Yeah, it certainly did. Let's talk some dollars and cents here, Sean.
Yeah.
I was reading up that the sports books had a nice day Sunday in that Super Bowl. For instance, the state of the New Jersey sports books pulled in $167 million worth of business on the Super Bowl and had a profit of $25 million. That's not a bad number. Not a bad day's work there for the sports books in New Jersey. What were the props? What were the bets? Because I understand the betting was fairly even on the two teams. So what were the wagers that made the most money for these sports books?
Well, according to, I heard a report that 36% of the same game parlays had Saquon Barkley in there as Saquon Barkley scoring a touchdown in there as part of their parlay. So you immediately clear off 36% of your same game parlays, and then any parlays that had Travis Kelce scoring, clear those off the books. And you know, the books probably would have cleaned up more if Patrick Mahomes didn't have those couple passing touchdowns and those garbage yards. But yeah, again, I'm always with the same game parlays. I never put in chalky, you know, people, it's easy for them to build these things because they're like, oh, and throwing that minus 200, that minus 250, and you're not necessarily getting a great price, and you're creating an opportunity just because one of these things break, the whole thing collapses. So I don't like putting chalk into a same game parlay. For me, those are fun long shot stuff.
It's amazing, Sean, that with the exception of Xavier Worthy, really, if you think about it, Devonta Smith, A.J. Brown, the Chiefs running game, Saquon Barkley, everybody was on the under. Everybody was under probably where their totals were for the day. So anybody who had parlays or straight bets on A.J. Brown going over yards or whatever, they lost. And
Devontae did hit because he had that deep one. But Goddard was another popular one. I had one that was killed by Patrick Mahomes' rushing attempts. That didn't get there. That was a popular one that got killed. So, you know, there were a lot of, I mean, that's the thing. You have so many different markets in the Super Bowl betting world. There's a lot of ways to get tripped up, and that's what the sports books love. So,
Sean, what type of, do you see that looking back now on the 2024 season from a gaming perspective, what do you see happening in 25? Are there any trends that you noted, like more money being bet on this type of wager as opposed to a straight traditional, give me the money line, give me this team?
As far as like gambling stuff, yeah, I think it's just more live betting, you know, as the technology gets better, as they get better at, you know, getting you these different live in-game bets. I think that market's going to continue. And then, you know, the prop stuff, like you see what you see in the Super Bowl, which is kind of crazy, but like they had those, a lot of those markets up for the playoff games and even some of the regular season. So they continue to grow and stuff. So yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of live betting, continued growth of the same game parlays, because that's where the sports books make their money, and that's
right.
That's where the consumers like to have fun. So
I know that's right. They can't resist those parlays, man.
Yeah,
can't resist them, Sean. You know, and they're money makers just by definition. They're money makers for the
no, definitely.
Yeah. All right, Sean, give me some way too early odds 2025. Sal was talking with me earlier about how the Eagles, I mean, they're stacked going into 2025.
Yeah.
They don't have any, except for Mekhi Becton. He's the only offensive starter that's a free agent. They got everybody else more or less locked down. And even defensively, they got a couple of guys they really do need to sign or should sign anyway. But very, very strong looking team going into 25. Whose odds do you see for 25 and anybody that catches your eye?
Yeah, I mean, I always think Joe Burrow, when it's all said and done, is going to win a Super Bowl. You know, that offense is still really elite. They got rid of their defensive coordinator. If they can maybe bring in a couple free agents, help him out on the defensive side.
Right.
And he's shown the ability to play at a high level in the playoffs. He's shown the ability to beat Patrick Mahomes, which only elite quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts have been able to do. I think the Bengals, which are like 18-1, 20-1, I think is kind of an interesting play there in the AFC. If you're looking for an early Super Bowl play, then obviously the favorites are up there. Eagles 6-1, Chiefs 650, Ravens. I'm not interested in at 650. Bills 750, Lions 10-1, 49ers 15-1.
The Lions went from being everybody's darling to a near has-been in the span of one loss.
And if I was a Lions fan, I'd be like, man, our defense got so injured we couldn't slow down everyone. Yeah. So they're gonna be formidable. They have a chip on their shoulder. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the opening day game. Yeah, because the Eagles do have to face the Lions. I saw that schedule. I wouldn't be surprised if that's who they kick it off with, Lions Eagles. So.
I hope they don't kick it off with Rams Eagles. I hope not, because that is so hard for that visiting team to win that game on that Thursday nighter.
And it's tough.
I hope we avoid that one. But all right, Sean, season's over, pal. Season is over. Now, I just want to ask you this one question because I see Fox desperately running these ads throughout these postseason games about whatever the name is of the spring football league now. I don't know. Is it XFL?
UFL, baby.
UFL. You baby. Listen to you. UFL. I mean, you have to embrace the notion, Sean, that nobody gives a shizzle about the UFL. I mean, but do you think there will ever be a serious market for spring football in this country?
It's tough because there was some stuff they were doing before the pandemic that I think that version of the XFL got going a little bit. I think the UFL, if they continue to stay in the spring and plug away, I don't think it'll ever be as popular as the NFL, but like a minor league version. And you look at you want to talk about gambling, people bet on the UFL more than some of these, regular season NBA or NHL games. So if people are betting on it, people might watch it. It's not gonna take the world by storm, but I think there's something, again, they have to play their cards right with the scheduling because some of the times they go up against March Madness, which is really a bad idea. Like, start the spring league after March Madness. That's where there's a nice window for football, for spring football. But, also too, like the NFL draft, just people tracking the NFL draft and who they want and, betting on the NFL draft, that's become huge too. So UFL isn't going to be taken over, but it's football and people will bet on it. So
I hope you play golf. I mean, because there's just no way you're able to fill your to-do list every day now without NFL football. So I don't know what you're going to be doing. I'm sure it's some depravity, but I don't know what you're going to find to do.
College basketball. I do get it.
I guess that's right. That's not a bad bridge into the summer. Fair enough. But listen, I enjoyed having you on, Sean. You're an excellent addition. 2 years now into it, and you do a hell of a job for me. And I hope it's been rewarding for you, and I look forward to dragging you back here next September for another season. All right?
All right, take it easy, Pat. Appreciate it.
All right, Sean. Thanks a lot. Sean Green there from the Sports Gambling Podcast. When we get back, I'm going to throw a trivia question out at you. Matter of fact, Zander, let me throw it now before we go to break. Gary Myers coming up, the state of New York's version of Ray Didinger. So stay with me for that. I'm going to talk to Gary about the NFC East and the Hall of Fame. And here's my question, gang. Don't look it up. You're doing really good, you chat guys. I appreciate it. Let's not look this one up. Just tell me this. In the last 10 years, there's been 3 non-quarterbacks to win the Super Bowl MVP. Last 10 years, 3 non-quarterbacks have won a Super Bowl MVP. Just tell me who they are for a fabulous This Week in Pro Football shirt. Not available in stores. Don't look that up. Zander will know if you do. All right, when we get back, Gary Myers is going to join me. We'll keep talking Super Bowl 59, and we'll talk some NFC East. That's next on This Week in Pro Football.
Welcome to Park Bank, a return to better banking. With 7 locations across Philadelphia and South Jersey, we prioritize your financial well-being with a blend of modern amenities and traditional customer service. Our professional team is dedicated to providing tailored banking solutions, whether you are opening your first account, planning for retirement, or expanding your business. Our services include a wide range of personal and business banking options with competitive deposit rates and products. We are committed to making your banking experience seamless and efficient, with the latest technology at your fingertips and the personalized support you deserve. Park Bank, your community. For more information, go to parkbank.com. That's Park, P-A-R-K-E, bank.com. Member FDIC. Concrete Cutting Systems Incorporated is the concrete cutting specialist in the Philadelphia area since 1995, and they've become the specialist in the Pittsburgh area as well. These guys are celebrating 28 years as the industry leader in the field of concrete cutting and robotic demolition. So if you have a project that requires any type of concrete cutting or drilling, concrete demolition, or interior excavating, call the specialist, Concrete Cutting Systems, located at 2514 Orthodox Street in the heart of Philly. Call them at 215-533-0652. With a fleet of over 70 service trucks, Concrete Cutting Systems Incorporated is always ready to service all of your concrete cutting, drilling, and concrete demolition and highway sealing needs. These guys are the only full union concrete cutting company based in Philadelphia. So don't delay. Call the boys today at 215-533-0652. And be sure to check them out on Facebook and Instagram at CCSINC_Phila or on the web at concretecuttingsystems.net.
Hi, welcome back here this week in Pro Football. Pat Callahan with you here on JAKIB Sports. Don't forget, give me a follow at TWIPF Pat. You can follow the network at JAKIB Sports. Please smash that hit button. I'm looking here. There we go. There you go. Pat Ryan. Man, oh, man, my boy Pat Ryan, the ex-quarterback of the Jets. Zander, you'll have to look and see if there's anybody else, because I see old Patty boy, Von Miller, Julian Edelman, Cooper Kupp. That is the correct answer. Unless you saw somebody else in front of him. Pat wasn't in there for a shirt yet, so we'll be lining him up. So Zander, just check and make sure. But well done. Well done there by Mr. Ryan. Always well done, too, by this gentleman. That would be a longtime writer for the New York Daily News, Dallas Morning News, the author of Once a Giant, and a gentleman who also was one of the I'm getting some feedback here, Gary. You got me on an echo or something? There you go. It's gone. A long time you joined Inside the NFL when it was Nick Buonacani and Len Dawson. Gary Myers. How you doing, Gary?
I'm doing great, Pat. I wish I had a shot at that trivia question, because during the commercial break, I figured it out.
You did. Well, you looked it up.
Was I ineligible for that?
Yes, you were. You are. You already have a shirt. You already have a shirt, Gary, which I'm sure you wear to every wedding you get invited to. But
I don't have a shirt.
Oh, you don't?
You owe me a shirt then. I didn't know there were shirts.
I thought for sure I sent you one. Well, I'm going to. All right, I will remedy that, Gary. I will remedy that as long as you promise to wear it at every formal event.
Why wouldn't I wear it? I'm proud.
Wear it to your next Once a Giant. It's green, beautiful shade of green. Not because of the Eagles, but just is. And I'm sure you'll wear it to your next Once a Giant book signing.
Absolutely.
Eagles
are big here in New York. Yeah, absolutely.
That's right. Gary, Patrick Mahomes threw for 33 yards in the first half Sunday, the lowest total of any first half in his storied career. The Eagles defensively demolished Kansas City. What happened to the Kansas City offense Sunday?
When you can't block them you can't run an offense. And it was very similar to what happened in the Bucks Chiefs Super Bowl 4 years ago, except the Bucks were blitzing the whole game. The Eagles didn't even blitz once, and they still couldn't block them. I think moving Joe Thuney from guard to tackle, it might have worked for a few weeks against teams that didn't have the defensive line that the Eagles did. But putting a guard at tackle and expecting him to be able to hold off that pass rush just wasn't realistic. And I think the Andy Reid star took a big hit. All of a sudden, Phil Simms told me in the week leading up to the Super Bowl that Andy Reid was the best offensive coach in NFL history. I haven't got back to Phil yet to see how he feels now, but you can't figure out during a game how to get guys blocked. You're not the best offense. Maybe he's the most creative.
Yeah,
but he had as bad a game as he did when the Eagles lost to the Patriots, 20 years ago in the Super Bowl.
That's a fair analogy, Gary, because it didn't look like the Chiefs did anything different in the second half than they did in the first half, other than the fact the Eagles lost a little bit of intensity defensively because they were up 40-6. I think that's the only thing that did it. But just another word though about the Chiefs. You mentioned how Reed's. You're right. A little shine came off that Andy Reid. So he's still going to Canton. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Biggest yellow jacket ever. But let me just ask you, the Chiefs' window, if you will. I mean, they got away with it all season. They were winning games very closely with odd plays or officiating calls or whatever. Is that window maybe starting to close now a little bit in Kansas City?
I was surprised the other day. Now, I don't know if this is still the truth, it's still accurate, but were the Chiefs still the favorite for next year to win the Super Bowl?
Oh, I was just talking with Sean Green about it. They're 60. They're right there with the Eagles at roughly 6-1.
Because the list I saw the other day, and it could be outdated, and it was definitely after the Super Bowl, but maybe it's changed since. That I saw the Chiefs at the top, and I still think they're going to be a factor. I'm not even sure they're going to win the division next year. That division's
I know it's going to get tougher, no question.
I don't know if you could ask me this later on, but my dark horse candidate, and maybe by the time the season starts, they won't be a dark horse, but I like the Chargers next year.
Yeah.
If they can get Herbert a couple of weapons, and maybe a little more help on defense, they won 11 games this year, and it was supposed to be a transition. So I think, and then Denver's getting better,
Denver's getting better. Denver's going to be a tough out next year. So you're right. I think, I don't know. I mean, it's just not fair. They assume Kansas City is going to be that good, that excellent year in and year out. And,
Pat, look how many games they won by one score this year.
Yeah, I know.
They weren't great this year.
I know.
They weren't great during the regular season last year. They got hot in the playoffs and won all those, those road playoff games at Buffalo and Baltimore.
I'm sure, Gary, that Josh Allen sat there Sunday and said, where the hell was this team 2 weeks ago? I'm sure he did. You couldn't help but think it. But now let's go to the other team, Gary. You're a longtime NFC East guy, spent tons of time in New York and Dallas. This Eagles organization, what impresses you most about how the Eagles really just seem to be almost a semi-permanent fixture near the top of the NFL, at least right now?
Yeah, I mean, great job by Howie Roseman. It's so interesting to me that when they brought in Chip Kelly, they basically put Howie in the broom closet for a couple of years, and when Kelly gets fired and Howie goes back in power, and they've been winning ever since. He just makes some really smart free agent signings, and his drafts have been excellent, around the edges. Plus, he drafted basically the entire Georgia defense when they're winning national championships.
Yeah.
He sprinkled in a few Alabama players along the way. And, back when the SEC and not the Big Ten was the best conference in the country, and I say that as a dad of a Michigan alum, that, taking those SEC players was, just drafting, the best players every year. And getting Jalen Carter, he was the 10th pick in the draft because there was some stuff about him before the draft that turned some teams off. And the guy's unstoppable now. So, and, let's give them a little bit of credit here. It looks like a no-brainer now with Saquon, right? Yeah. But the trend in the league really was not to pay the running backs. And I give the Eagles a lot of credit for looking at Barkley as a missing piece. And I think that might start a trend in the other direction now because, Derrick Henry and Josh Jacobs were huge additions for the Ravens and the Packers. And now after what Saquon did,
Yep. Yeah.
I give Howie some credit there. I really do. A lot of credit.
Oh, got it. Yeah, I do actually feel bad for the Giants organization. It was their absolute worst nightmare what happened with Saquon Barkley. And it's an organization now they got to start over even at the quarterback position. And then without Saquon. So it just didn't work out. But
I just want to say this, and I know I texted you this the other day, and I really believe this. If Barkley played for the Giants this year, he would have had 1,100 yards and gotten hurt and missed 3 or 4 games along the way because that's what his career has been. The Giants were no better offense with the offensive line this year than they've been in years past. So what I've been texting to or tweeting to the Giant fans all year is there's no reason not to wish good things for Barkley. He was a great Giant. He was loved in the locker room. He was the face of the franchise. But he wasn't going to do this with them. He was getting hit 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage. Now he didn't get hit until 5 yards beyond the line of scrimmage. And he made one guy miss, and he was
exactly right.
For 60
That's
yards.
it. And then he's gone. Yeah, you're certainly right, Gary. You're right on all counts there. Let's look around the rest of the NFC East, Gary. Sure. I was just struck. Dak Prescott at a fundraiser. Obviously had hit his head on the way in on a low-hanging door frame. Here's his quote. I feel like we've competed with the Eagles and beat them for the most part when we've played them. I just want you to just talk about the Cowboys, the decision they made at head coach, and how far away are they from being on a level with the Eagles right now in the NFC East?
Well, Washington is closer to Philadelphia than Dallas is, both geographically and in the standings.
Right.
I didn't understand what Jerry did after the season. Just like with Jason Garrett, he took a week with Mike McCarthy before letting him go when he knew all along that he wasn't going to keep him. And any chance potentially to get into the Ben Johnson sweepstakes was lost because Ben Johnson got hired by the Bears. I think McCarthy was still the coach of the Cowboys. And why do that? And then, to not even wait for Kellen Moore, who I think was held in much higher regard than Brian Schottenheimer. And I like Brian. I know him when he was with the Jets for a few years.
Right.
But there's a reason he's been an assistant coach for 25 years or whatever and never really come close to being a head coach. For Brian's sake, because he is a good guy, I hope he does well. But just the structure of the Dallas front office with Jerry refusing to let go, it basically dooms any coach.
Yeah.
The only coach that's really had a success there was, I think Parcells.
All right.
Well, let me rephrase it. The only coach that was able to rise above Jerry was Parcells. Parcells did not have great success. I think he won one playoff game. Garrett had some success, but they underachieved when they were the number one seed.
I remember that. Yeah, the Giants went down there and beat them, and Packers went down there and beat them. And I just think that Prescott is crazy to even say that. Dallas to me. Gary,
what's he going to say? What's he going to say, Pat?
He shouldn't say that. He should just say we got a lot of work to do, and I'm going to bear down and say all the usual.
Jerry's paying him an awful lot of money to say, not only be a good player, but to say the right things. And
right. But I think
why tell Cowboy fans a week after the Super Bowl that we suck and we're 5 to 6 victories behind Philadelphia before we even get to free agency of the draft? That doesn't accomplish anything. He's trying to be supportive of his coach.
All right, talking here with Gary Myers, the author of Once a Giant and a guy who made inside the NFL a household name amongst guys like me anyway. Back, what was that show? It was like in the 80s. Wasn't it the 80s that show debuted, Gary?
I think so. Maybe even the late 70s. I got there in 89.
Well, I don't think HBO showed up till the 80s. I don't know, but anyway.
You might be right about that. And I was there till 2001. It was at HBO for another 2-3 years after that, then got lost.
Yeah, it did. Well, it got lost in the later stages of HBO anyway. They started to get silly with what they were doing. But Gary, one more team in the NFC East, and that's Washington. A tremendous season for them out of nowhere. But Let's look at that Commanders team, Gary. Do you think they're too much of a one-man band now? With this kid's going to be a terrific NFL quarterback, Jaden Daniels. But
he already is.
Yeah. Does Washington, though, have some more work to do before they can really compete with the big dogs?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think they were. I mean, I don't know what happened to the Lions in that game, except that 3/4 of their defense was on injured reserve. So I think that, you take a healthy Lions team against a healthy Washington team based on the rosters of those teams this past season. I think Detroit wins 8 out of 10 times. It's just that Detroit didn't have its defense. So,
that's right.
Washington, they beat, a very average Tampa team and then a decimated Detroit team and then get blown out by Philadelphia.
You're right.
Yeah. So I think they're a big step behind the Eagles at this point. But, we'll see what happens. Things change so much in the offseason in this league with free agency and then the draft that it's hard to project in February what it's going to be like in September. But, a year ago, the Giants and Washington were silent. I would say they were kind of on an equal level. And then the Giants stunk again, and Washington, I forget how many games they won, 10 or 11 games or something. And the difference was that Washington was just a little bit worse than the Giants were in 2023. So they were picking second in the draft, and the Giants were picking sixth. And Washington got its quarterback, and the Giants didn't. And that's basically the difference. Now, Washington's personnel was a little better than the Giants, but the major difference was they had a quarterback. And you can't win in this league without a really, really good quarterback. I mean, there are aberrations here and there.
No, you're right. There's damn few of them anymore, Gary. Damn few of them anymore. You're right about that. And I think Washington you're right. Washington's further along than Dallas because they got a kid at quarterback who's absolutely dynamite, but they shouldn't fool themselves in Washington that they're right on the cusp. All right, Gary Myers, I want to talk about the Hall of Fame. I follow you religiously on X. And you're always brave, man. You're right out there, and you were leading the charge for Eli. Were you surprised that the tide seemingly turned on him late in the process? And how close do you think he came?
Well, I can tell you how close he came because I was sitting in the room, and now that it's all been announced, I can spill the beans somewhat. I mean, we had 15, as you know, we discussed 15 finalists in the room.
Right.
And then we cut it from 10. And then the new process here was going from 10 to 7. And then when we got to 7, we voted for 5. And I was really surprised only 3 made it. I thought 4 or 5 would still make it, but obviously the 7 split the vote.
Right.
But to answer your Eli question, Eli did not make the cut to 10.
Okay.
So he did not even come close. And the new process didn't impact his candidacy at all because he didn't make it to 7, which is when the new process came into effect.
Yeah.
Let's say this. I had a feeling going into it was going to be a struggle. And I knew 5 minutes into the 15-minute discussion on Eli, he had no shot.
Really?
Because once Bob Glauber gave the opening presentation, and he did an excellent job with it, and then I can't remember whether I spoke second or I let somebody go second, and then I jumped into third. But by the time I finished talking, I knew he had no shot because the pushback on Eli was the level of pushback was on him was more than any player in any of the 15 years I've been on the committee.
No kidding, Gary.
Other than perhaps T.O.
Yeah.
And the T.O. thing was not based on his credentials. It was based on him being a complete knucklehead.
Right.
And a cancer in the locker room, and that's what kept him out the first 2 years. Eli, everybody knows Eli's a great guy.
Yeah.
And that obviously was not an issue. It was his credentials. And I think the voters got it wrong. You and I probably disagree on this, but when I compared him to Warren Moon and to Dan Fouts, the numbers were about the same as far as winning percentage. Eli was an even 500. Warren Moon was a game over 500. Dan Fouts was 2 games over 500.
They're telling stats. You're right. I mean, what you pointed out there was it's hard to argue what you just described. You're right. And meanwhile, Eli's got the 2 Super Bowl rings.
And Moon and Fouts were first ballot Hall of Famers. Moon never got to a conference championship game. Dan got to 2 and lost them both. Eli's a 2-time Super Bowl MVP, and he was within a David Tyree catch the Patriots are being remembered or being thought of as the greatest single season team in NFL history. You know, he beat Favre and Rodgers at Lambeau in the playoffs. What else do you want?
Well, I think, Gary, don't you think that the fact that they just didn't want him to be first ballot had something?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
but
okay. I mean, I think. Well, go ahead. You were going to say.
Yeah, I was going to say, but the conversation was so negative, Pat. That, I'm wondering now. You know, Breeze is up next year.
I know.
We can put 2 quarterbacks in the same year. We've put 2
I mean, you're allowed to do that. I don't like that where it seems to be now we're saying like you're at a Chinese restaurant. We're going to pick one receiver. We're going to pick one running. But let me just ask you a couple. I admit, full disclosure, longtime Ram fan. I admit it, but I don't understand this Torrey Holt. I do not understand it. His statistics dwarf Sterling Sharp. And for the whole decade of the 2000s, he was the #1 receiver in the NFL in terms of yards and receptions. What is stopping him from getting in here?
Well, one thing that you have to consider is that they were in different categories. So Sterling Sharp was a senior candidate.
Right.
And I presented him, and he was outstanding. Unfortunately, his career was cut short, but he was right there with Jerry Rice as the best receiver in the league for the 7 years that he played. Holt was a modern era candidate, so he was not competing against Sterling Sharp.
Okay.
There was no comparison in the meeting made between here's Torrey Holt's numbers, here's Sterling Sharp numbers.
Right.
It was here's Torrey Holt's numbers, here's Reggie Wayne's numbers. And as they've done for the last 4 or 5 years,
they
canceled each other out. Now, we got Andre Johnson in, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, and I thought that would open it up for a wide receiver to get in this year and another one next year. But the new voting process, I mean, we only got 3 modern era candidates in. I was shocked about that. I didn't know that until I watched it because they didn't tell us.
Yeah.
When they announced the 4 guys, the 3 moderns plus Sterling, I go, you know, they put the cards up in that theater, and I'm going, okay, they're going to flip some more cards over to who the other 3 guys that got in. They go, that's it. I go, what?
Yeah.
You know?
And I don't get Jared Allen. I'm sorry. I get it. He's good defensive end. Good defensive end. Now he's in the Hall of Fame. I don't get it. I mean, 130 sacks in 13 years. That's 10 a year. I just don't understand what Jared Allen is doing with the Hall of Fame.
I don't know how you feel about, you know, your former Eagle, Eric Allen, but
I do think he deserved it. I really do. I do think he deserved it.
My problem with Eric Allen is that, you know, where was he the last 18 years and why now? When we had Everson Walls and Albert Lewis didn't become a finalist until their 20th and final year of eligibility. Neither one of them got in. Now, Eric Allen, great guy. He was a really, really good player. I think Everson Walls was a better player.
Yeah.
I maybe Albert Lewis was. I didn't see enough of Albert Lewis on a regular basis, but I know people think that he was just a tremendous player.
Right.
I'll give Paul Domowitch, your guy in Philly, a ton of credit for the last 2 years. He's made just tremendous presentations on Eric, and you can tell that the momentum was shifting towards Eric getting in as we started voting. And for him to survive that vote from 7 and be one of the 3, you know, good for him. You know, I'm happy for him.
Yeah. All right, Gary Myers. I appreciate that talk about the Hall of Fame. Good discussion. I appreciate it.
I did not know you were a Rams guy. I was wondering why you didn't want the Rams.
Everybody in the chat yells at me for being a Ram. But I started 67, Gary. I bet you weren't. I bet you still weren't paying attention to the NFL in 67. That's when I became.
Oh, yeah, I was. Sure I was.
Oh, you are? Well, then you should have been.
I was 3 years old then?
Come on, were you? But,
I'm probably older than you.
Yeah. I used to watch that. Big Rams fan. But anyway.
So what do you think about Maxie Bourne? Do you think he should have gotten in?
No, I don't think Maxie Bourne should have got it. Good player. But I mean, that jacket is for the all-time greats, and I don't know. But anyway, you look. God bless you, Hall of Fame guys. That is not an easy job. I think it's so. I'm sure you do. I'm sure you do as well as you do with everything else, which is plenty good. So, I appreciate you coming on, Gary. Thanks for spending the time with me. And I gotta find more space for Gary Myers. I will do that. I'll work on that all off season.
That's your off-season assignment as well. Sending me one of those T-shirts.
All right, Gary. Thanks very much, Gary Myers, for joining me tonight. All right, Gary. Wish you all the best.
Take care, Pat.
All right. All right, we got a quick break here, and then a very special guest, the last name in football analysis, is going to join me to wrap up the season here on This Week in Pro Football.
Somewhere on the blue planet lies a hidden gem, nestled in the heart of lush greenery. Where the game of golf takes on a new meaning. At Spring Mill Country Club, we offer an unparalleled golfing experience. Our meticulously maintained course is designed to challenge and delight golfers of all levels. But that's not all. Spring Mill is also the perfect venue for your most cherished celebrations. From intimate gatherings to grand weddings, our elegant banquet facilities provide the perfect backdrop for your special day. With exquisite cuisine, personalized service, and breathtaking surroundings, every event at Spring Mill becomes a cherished memory. Let us be a part of your journey, whether it's a round of golf, a celebration, or a once-in-a-lifetime wedding. Spring Mill Country Club, where every moment is extraordinary. Visit us today and create your unforgettable story.
Welcome back. We've got another exciting play underway at KennedyAuto.com.
That's right. At KennedyAuto.com, you can browse their entire inventory from home.
The customer is scrolling hundreds of Ford, Mazda, and Subaru vehicles right at his fingertips.
He made his selection and got a bottom line price set directly to his email. He could go all the way.
And the deal is good, all without leaving his couch. Incredible. KennedyAuto.com. Enjoy your ride.
Johnny Apple's Restaurant and Bar opened in 2001 and for over 20 years has been serving great food and good times to Bucks County residents, friends, and family. Ideally located at 184 Buck Road in Holland, Johnny Apple's offers a terrific array of steaks, seafood, and daily specials. They also host private parties and affairs of any size. For excellent food, great company, and a relaxed lunch or dinner, check out Johnny Apple's Restaurant at 215-953-9900 or at johnnyapplesrestaurant.com.
All right, welcome back here This Week in Pro Football. We're going to wrap this up. I'd like to ask my boys in the chat. First off, Flexen, I saw you posted there that what did you say about me about being a Ram fan? Out of pocket. I'm out of pocket. I don't know what the hell that means. But anyway, I'm sure it isn't complimentary. I know that much. But yeah, I know. Pat's out of pocket being a Rams fan. I guess that means I lost money. I don't know. Zander, you can tell me. But one thing I want you guys in the chat to consider here. Who's the biggest threat to the Eagles going into the 25? Who do you see as the one team in the NFC that's the biggest threat to the Eagles' superiority? I'll be curious to see what you guys think about that. I have a team in mind. I'll ask this guy the same thing there. Let's bring Zander. Why don't you join me here to wrap this up here? I think everybody on the chat knows this gentleman, Zander Krause. Zander, thanks for spending a minute with me here, pal.
Pat, thanks for having me on. What an honor this is to join This Week in Pro Football.
Oh, it is. It's quite a moment for you. Quite a moment for you. I know that. But
all of the shows I've done this season, this is my biggest moment of stardom right here, okay?
Well, let me ask you. Who do you think's the biggest threat to Philadelphia? I know it's way, way too early, but so what? We'll ruminate. What team do you think's most poised to challenge Philly's superiority in the NFC?
I think it's got to be Detroit, Pat. I mean, I know they lost their two coordinators, but I think they're set up. I mean, they're the one team with the comparable offensive line and defensive line. Now, they had all those injuries this year. They have comparable skill position players. They got a solid quarterback. I mean, I think they're the team that's most built to compete with the Eagles. And probably the other team I'd go if you had to go 1-2, I think I'd go Commanders, Pat. I mean, they got $100 million in cap space. Jaden Daniels has come on strong into the league so far. So I think I'd go Lions and then Commanders.
I see that. And there are two popular names in the chat. I see that. Lions. I see Commanders. I'll tell you one team I think we need to think of, and I can't stand them, and that's San Francisco. They were just decimated by injuries this year. They got off on the wrong foot. But I'm telling you, that team, Zander, that's a good team. That's a good team out there. And I think
what are they doing with Purdy, Pat?
They're going to sign him. They're going to sign him. They're going to sign him. They have no choice now in the NFL. You've got to have that $50 million a year quarterback. And is he worth it? No, but they're going to sign him. But he's perfect for that offense, Andrew. He's perfect for that offense.
They're getting rid of Daniel now. They're getting rid of Deebo Samuel, who
I know they are. That's not a big loss.
No,
But,
he's not that good.
But I think I just wouldn't sleep on him. That team will be back. I think Washington. I just don't know, Zander. They've got a dynamite quarterback, but I'm not impressed with their running game. I'm not terribly impressed with their offensive line. They got some upgrades they have to do.
Yeah, I agree.
Detroit, I agree. And then Minnesota, we'll see. Minnesota now, they're gonna jettison Sam Darnold. I'd be shocked if they pay Sam Darnold that kind of money.
So you buying into the JJ McCarthy wave?
I don't know yet. Now, of course, what happened with Jaden Daniels makes you think, okay,
right.
But this kid had a bad injury. You don't know. First year back, they're never quite right. That'll be an interesting story. See how that develops. I am not a Packers fan. I bitched about them all season long because Jordan Love was my fantasy quarterback.
Yeah.
I just don't think I think there's a ceiling on that guy, Zander. I don't see it.
I agree. He's too up and down, too inconsistent right now. Some days you watch him, he looks great. Some days you watch him and he looks awful. But no, I agree with you on that front. The Vikings, I'm not there with you. I'm not there with you. I don't see it with Minnesota. I think they're a good team. They got good players, but I don't know.
I wonder.
I don't know. I was wrong about Bo Nix, so maybe JJ can play.
Yeah, it's fair. That's a fair comment. All right. Just a word from you about what the Eagles just accomplished. And now they've got their free agents. You put together that list for me of their upcoming free agents. Who are you targeting off the top to get back into the fold?
Zach Bond's my number one, Pat. You look at that defense, and I thought Sal made a great point about Josh Sweat, because in our world, Josh Sweat is as good as gone. I mean, he signed Drew Rosenhaus at the end of the season, who's a big money agent, obviously. So I thought Sweat would be gone. I thought Sal brought up some good points, but you look at this defense, Pat. Your secondary secure. You got Quignon and Cooper DeJean. You got both safeties are under contract for next year. You go to that defensive line. You have Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith as pieces on that defensive line. The only level of the defense right now that has uncertainty for 2025 is the linebacker core. Nakobe Dean went down with an injury late in the year. That's a tough injury. What's he going to have there? You're going to let Zach Bond walk? I don't, so I know you want an edge rusher. I assume Howie's going to draft somebody or make a trade. You mentioned Myles Garrett earlier in the show tonight, but Zach Bond's my number one for that reason, because look, let's be real. The defense was a big part of what this team accomplished this year. And the best thing you can do is probably try and secure that to come back. So I got Zach Bond as my number one, but who's going to be the dumb team, Pat, that comes in and offers him $22 million? And
somebody, I'll tell you, Zander, somebody's going to do it. I think of Howie hasn't had many regrets over the recent 4-year run he's been on, but that's probably number one is only signing Bond to a 1-year contract. But somebody's going to offer Bond the money. You know it is Howie's going to, I guess, get ahead of it. I think Sweat's a big signing too. Sal said that was his number one. Yeah. Man, you just can't get enough of them edge rushers that can wreak havoc.
I don't think he's going to be back either. I really don't.
I don't know. You're right.
Sal is more info than me, but
it's a glamour position. Yeah.
Howie spoke to some reporters off the record, and he allowed them to go on the record with it. And John McMullen was telling me he's focused on Bond, but he also is aware that a team could come in and swoop him up if he pays too much. But Sweat has been talking with this new agent and everything. I think Sweat's going to be
Here we go. All right. One last thing I want to ask you here before I let you go is officiating changes there. I know they're going to be talking about some in the offseason. It was another year in which there was too much discussion, I'm sure, as far as New York is concerned, about the officials. Do you see them passing something that says that a coach can challenge a personal foul penalty, like roughing the passer, like a hit to the head? You think they might put that in there?
And so, Pat, this is a backwards conversation. So we're crying about officials, and all we want to do is make more rules.
Right.
It's over legislated. The whole game is over legislated. So you see a flag every third play. It's like, well, there's 150 rules to remember on any given play. So I think it would be fair to do that, I guess, to give the coaches a chance to correct some of the calls. But I don't know. I try not to get into to cry about. Everybody deals with officials, both teams in both games. I mean, there's going to be good calls. There's going to be bad calls. When you destroy the Chiefs in the Super Bowl, you don't worry about the officials, right? How quick did that narrative get erased with that?
That's fair. That's a fair comment. The Eagles took the officials right out of the game, man. That's for sure. They sure did. All right, Zander, I appreciate you taking a few minutes, and thanks very much for all your help this season, pal. All right?
Absolutely, Pat. Great show all year, and we're looking forward to having This Week in Pro Football back for season number 4, Pat.
All right, pal. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
All right. That'll do it for me. All you guys in the chat, I saw you done a lot of you. I understand the comments about Brock Purdy. I do. He doesn't have a cannon arm. He's a system quarterback. I agree. But I think the 49ers are going to have to pay him. So Purdy and Goff, I think that's a fair analogy. So Purdy and Goff. But look at the Lions now. The Lions paid Jared Goff all that money. But come on. When push came to shove, Jared Goff, you know who he was? Jared Goff. That's why the Rams traded him and paid a huge price. Jahmyr Gibbs is on the Detroit Lions because of the Rams, right? So, but what do the Rams have? They got the shiny trophy now out there at SoFi Stadium that they weren't going to get with Jared Goff. But it's interesting. It's interesting now. I mean, that's why the Eagles, let's face it, man, that's 51% of us when they made that second round pick years ago, Jalen Hurts, we all shook our heads like, what? What did they do there? Well, now you know. I mean, Jalen Hurts was one of the 5 top quarterbacks in the NFL. So, all right, listen, that's it for this week in pro football. And thanks to all of you guys for sticking with me all season long in the chat. I want you all to come back. Make sure you hit that like button 5 million times. And as I said, thanks to Zander for producing. Thanks to Sal Paolantonio for joining me. All the guests I've had on, it was great having them on. It was great discoursing with you throughout this NFL season. I look forward to doing it again next year. That'll do it. All right, so I'll talk to you all. Make sure you follow me on Twitter. We can talk all off season at TWIPF Pat. So thanks again. All right, good night, everybody.